Welcome back to the Map for College learning community. My name is Ernest Manelli, founder of My Action Plan for College, and I feel very passionately that students should have educational opportunities, whether you are learning to be a plumber and a pipe fitter, whether you are learning to be a hedge fund manager, whether you're learning to be a neonatal surgeon, like whatever the case may be, whatever your passion is. You might have a passion for selling insurance. You might have a passion for developing new solar technologies, whatever the case may be. I want students and families to understand that keeping an open mind about educational opportunities can really reap some very wonderful benefits. And I will get very specific in this video about what I mean in a particular instance. I will work with many students and families who will say something along the lines of, well, I want my son or daughter to apply to public school, which is great. Hey, excellent. Want them to apply to public school, want to get an affordable education, want to get a great return on my investment. I believe that if you have quality public colleges and universities in your region, in state, and also in your region that you think would be a great fit for you and your academic and career goals, then by all means, do the due diligence, do the research, explore them, potentially go on a campus visit to a targeted school that you might like, or two or three. Try to build up your information base first. But I would also keep an open mind about private schools because the interesting thing, and my guidance counselor, Mr. Levangie, he told me about this. He said, especially for students who may qualify for need based financial aid, because there's only so much merit based aid, which in very nonplussed language is officially called non need based aid. Wow, how exciting a term is that? I think merit based aid is more like billboard material, like you deserve it, you've earned it. So there is a certain amount of merit based financial aid that many institutions, especially private institutions, will be able to allocate to certain students who meet certain criteria based on the overall scope and sequence of the admissions pool of the applicants in any given year. And again, because the application pool is different each year, there may be slight differences in terms of the allocation and how much money is coming from the endowment, how was the alumni fundraiser from the past fiscal year. All of these things factor into it. So there's a certain amount of money that you could potentially qualify for if you have exceptional grades, strength of schedule, transcript, potentially test scores for those schools that are accepting tests and evaluating them for such purposes. Not every school does. Every school has their own secret recipe that they make in their secret kitchen of financial aid in terms of how they allocate the merit-based money. And I guess my main take-home message is that let's say you may qualify for merit-based aid to some degree for certain colleges, and there are even some public colleges that offer merit-based aid, especially for in-state residents. They might have special scholarships. I know that here in Massachusetts, they have the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, based on certain criteria that you have coming in as an incoming student. So if you qualify for merit-based aid, you just have to see. You just have to apply, submit any required documentation and check and make sure that everything is done appropriately, and then see what you get back in terms of an award letter. But if you qualify potentially for need based aid, in other words, let's say you fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and let's say it comes back with an expected family contribution of X, and then you can sort of fill in the gaps and anticipate, okay, my potential award amount for federal financial aid, whether it comes in the form of grants, scholarships, and or student and parent plus loans in some combination potentially, you can look and make some prognostication as to which schools are going to be potentially the most expensive from a bottom line standpoint, and which schools might be a little bit more on the affordable side. And there's going to be a range. So I guess my take home message is you have to explore the financial aid options and get a sense of your viability in terms of how you look on paper based on the FAFSA, based on the information that you provide, and so that you don't get this sense of sticker shock. Now, I will also share a positive note. Sometimes, especially if you have a confluence of qualifying for need-based aid and qualifying for merit-based aid, if you have that confluence occur, in certain instances, a private college or university may be cost competitive even with a local in-state tuition for state college or university. So the reason I mention that is because that scenario actually happened to me. There were a couple of private colleges and universities for which I qualified for, and in fairness, my circumstances, I qualified for quite a bit of need-based aid, legitimately. And I also qualified for quite a bit of merit-based aid. Like looking back, I didn't have that heavy a student loan burden. And it was a real blessing because of a confluence of events. Now, not every private college and university was able to extend the combination of merit-based and need-based aid that I was able to get from a couple of the schools. But for a couple of the schools with, let's say, large endowments, heavily committed to financial aid, it's part of their ethos that they make it work for students, and they don't want finances to be a barrier to your education. Specifically, Harvard. Harvard really came through in a big way. It wasn't just Harvard, but Harvard sort of led the pack among the schools to which I was accepted, ahead of Yale, ahead of Georgetown, ahead of University of Miami. And actually, when I looked at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, it was actually costing me less money to go to Harvard College than to attend UMass Amherst. So, from a quality of opportunity standpoint, and from a return on investment standpoint, and from a bottom line dollar standpoint, at the beginning of the process, some of the private schools were 2-3 times more expensive. In one case, I think one of the private schools was actually 4 times more expensive than the public option. But when I got my financial aid award letter back, I was pleasantly surprised. So you may have a situation in which a school looks very daunting financially on the front end, but then potentially when you receive your financial aid determination letter back from certain schools, you may be pleasantly surprised that it may be cost competitive. It may be in the ballpark of viability, comparable to something that you might receive from a state college. Now, in certain instances, there's quite a gap. In other instances, you are cost competitive. My theory is, and my experience is, that you just have to give it a shot. You have to diversify your portfolio. Certainly keep some public universities in the mix on your list of schools. Keep some private universities in the mix on your list of schools. Try to diversify and try to make your situation as democratized as possible. Try to put yourself in a position to receive a variety of options when you do receive your notifications back. Once again, my name is Ernest Manelli. Please feel free to like this video, subscribe to our growing YouTube channel and our learning community. Thank you very much. Have a great day.